Irony, verbal irony. When a speaker says one thing but means another, or when a literal meaning is contrary to its intended effect, we deal with verbal irony. A common example of this use of verbal irony is a scenario of a man staring out a window, looking at a miserably muddy rainy day and remarking, "Lovely day for a stroll." This remark is ironic because it expresses the opposite of the circumstances. In Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Bennet refers to his son-in-law, "my favorite son-in-law," though he intends to show that he strongly disapproves of him. William Shakespeare is well known for his use of verbal irony, sarcasm, which, as we shall see below, is a type of a verbal irony. In the play Julius Caesar, the character of Mark Antony gives a speech at the funeral of Caesar and begins, "Friends, countrymen, lend me your ears." In this speech, Mark Antony repeats the phrase "honorable man" several times, speaking of Brutus, whose actions, murdering Caesar, have been anything but honorable. This repetition has the effect of completely inverting its literal meaning. When Mark Antony says Brutus is an honorable man, he intends to show quite the contrary. At its simplest, verbal irony involves what one does not mean. It is defined as a mode of speech in which the meaning is contrary to the words. Such ironies are often hyperboles or litetes. Many distinguished writers, Sophocles, Chaucer, Shakespeare, Defoe, Swift, Fielding, Byron, Thackeray, Dickens, Hardy, Mark Twain, Henry James, Joyce, etc., employ irony, but it would be true to say that in many works by many of these authors we find not so much direct or overt irony, but rather an ironic temper or tone, an ironic way of looking at things and feeling of them. One of the types of verbal irony is regarded sarcasm. The Latin sarcasmus, which stems from the Greek sarcasmos, literally means to bite the lips in rage. Sarcasm refers to a humor that is at once cutting and bold in both in a mocking fashion. Sarcasm is not, however, always blatantly expressed, and can be, and commonly is, conveyed in an exaggerated intonation of one's voice when speaking, as to over-accentuate and draw attention to what is being mocked or made humorous. For example, if a person is served an enormous plate of food at a restaurant, his or her companion might remark to the other, "Well, that should feed the 7 of us." The person's remark is both facetious and ironic, since the plate is obviously intended to feed one person, not 7. The remark is obviously making fun of the large portion of food, and thus would be considered a sarcastic comment. Many forms of sarcasm can be dependent on the tone of one's voice, so using sarcasm in writing can be much harder to pick up on the page than it is in dialogue. This did not stop writers like Mark Twain and Jane Austen, to name a few, from creating a reputation along with many masterworks hinged on the appreciation of sarcasm through the art of the satirical novel. Throughout much of history, sarcasm was considered a lower form of wit, because it was considered so unabashedly disrespectful to the person or object being described. In the 19th century, famous Scottish historian and essayist Thomas Carlyle once remarked that sarcasm is a language of the devil, for which reason I have long since so good as denounced it. Over the years, and certainly today, sarcasm has become a commonly welcomed and appreciated form of humor. There is a bit of confusion over what is ironic and what is merely coincidental. The two ideas can be easily confused, but there is, however, a very distinct difference between what is ironic and what is sarcastic. Sarcasm would never be described as gentle or endearing, but rather as caustic and bitter, describing situations, persons, or things in a derogatory way in order to be funny. Writers use sarcasm to criticize everything from religion to government to philosophers and other writers. The 14th century English author and poet Geoffrey Chaucer speaks of a character in the Canterbury Tales as a wanton and merry person who seduces women and accepts bribes. This is a sarcastic criticism of the clergy, who had become very corrupt. The stylistic function of sarcasm in literature can be the following: it adds adornment, variation, embellishment, embroidery, emphasis, exaggeration, exclamation, flourish, irony, and luxuriance to the English language. And now the difference between verbal irony and sarcasm. A fair amount of confusion has surrounded the issue regarding the relationship between verbal irony and sarcasm. The latter is frequently misused as a synonym for irony. Irony refers, however, to the literal meaning and the intended meaning of the words uttered being different, while sarcasm refers to the mocking intent of the utterance. It is possible to be ironic without being sarcastic, or to be sarcastic without being ironic. The most vivid difference probably is ridicule. Ridicule is an important aspect of sarcasm, but not verbal irony in general. By this account, sarcasm is a particular kind of personal criticism leveled against a person or group of persons that incorporates verbal irony. For example, a person reports to her friend that rather than going to a medical doctor to treat her ovarian cancer, she has decided to see a spiritual healer instead. In response, her friend says sarcastically, "Great idea. I hear they do fine work." The friend could have also replied with any number of ironic expressions that should not be labeled as sarcasm exactly. Sarcasm is also regularly confused with cynicism, which is common use, which in common use is seen as a fundamental nihilistic attitude towards other people and life in general. The term is frequently misused as a synonym for irony. And now critical thinking. Can you feel irony and sarcasm in the story? Does Parker refer to ridicule? Illustrate your answers with examples from the story. In the first paragraph, the author tells the readers that Annabel and Midge came out of the tea room with the arrogant slow gait. In the fifth paragraph, we read they held their heads higher and set their feet with exquisite precision, as if they stepped over the necks of peasants. What made them walk arrogantly? Does it create ironic effect?